What started as a fun hunt for penguins hidden around RuneScape became one of the most chaotic nights in the game's history. In 2009, a small glitch allowed players to gain millions of illegitimate XP, hundreds of innocent players were banned, and Jagex spent nearly a week cleaning up the mess. But things could have been so much worse if two of RuneScape's most respected moderators hadn't stepped in. This is the story of the penguin hide-and-seek glitch. Our story begins on September 2nd, 2008, when a new feature called Distractions and Diversions was added to RuneScape. As the name suggests, these were small activities scattered around the world meant to break up your usual adventures. Over 30 of them exist today in RuneScape 3, but at the time, there were only 3. Balthazar's Big Top Bonanza, a weekly circus where players could perform for experience and cosmetic items. Shooting Stars, where players tracked and mined fallen meteors for mining XP and valuable loot. And finally, the focus of this story, Penguin Hide-and-Seek. Each week, 10 penguins would appear across the world of RuneScape, disguised as ordinary objects. They might look cute, but they were actually spies for an organization known as the Killer Gentoo Penguins, or KGP. In case you were wondering, yes, they are a parody of the Soviet Union's KGB. Larry, the Ardon zookeeper, tasked players with tracking down these penguins and reporting their locations to him, rewarding them with penguin points in return. You could earn up to 15 points per week, with some penguins giving more points than others, and each point could be exchanged with Larry for either experience in a skill of your choice or 6,500 coins. But how would you actually know where to find these penguins? Well, Larry would give you a few clues each week, but since the penguins appeared in the same locations for everyone, collaboration quickly became the key. Players began sharing locations through friends chats and on the forums, turning what started as a simple distraction into a full-blown weekly community event. This collaboration eventually led to the creation of World 60 Pengs, the largest and most organized friends chat dedicated to hunting penguins. The group grew to be so massive that it needed multiple chat channels just to handle the number of players participating. Its leader, Canada Girl, would also post the locations each week to the RuneScape forums. But everything changed one January evening in 2009, when a small oversight in the code turned this peaceful community activity into one of the most unforgettable nights in RuneScape history. But before we discuss players spying on penguins, let's stop people from spying on you. Your internet service provider can see and log everything you do online, and in the US, they can legally sell that data to advertisers. Whoever owns the Wi-Fi you're on can also take a peek at your browsing history. The solution is today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN encrypts and reroutes all your traffic through secure servers, so your ISP can't log your activity and your browsing stays private. I use it myself for peace of mind, especially on public Wi-Fi, where hackers on the same network could easily steal your personal information. ExpressVPN also lets you change your IP address to one of 105 countries, giving you access to streaming libraries and shows not available where you live. I live in the US, but if I switch my network to Canada, I can watch The Office on Netflix. Find out how to get up to 4 extra months for free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description below, or going to expressvpn.com/Colonello. Late in the night, on January 28, 2009, players discovered that week's penguin location reset had introduced a serious glitch. For the first time ever, it was possible to spy on the same penguin as many times as you wanted. Normally, once you'd found a penguin, the game would tell you that you'd already spotted it, and you wouldn't earn any more points. But this time, that restriction was gone. Every click on the same penguin gave more points over and over again. Players could keep spying until they hit the cap of 50 points. At which point, they'd have to visit Larry to redeem them before continuing. But these are penguin points. They sound about as serious as Chuck E. Cheese tokens. The amount of coins you could trade them for wasn't exactly game-breaking, as plenty of other better money-making methods existed. So how much damage could players really do by redeeming a bunch of these? Well, I've yet to explain just how much experience you could earn from redeeming penguin points. Each point granted experience equal to your level multiplied by 25. So for example, if you had level 80 Runecraft and wanted to redeem points for XP in that skill, each point was worth 2,000 experience. Players who clicked fast enough could easily farm over 1 million experience per hour in any skill they wanted, considering it takes just over 13 million XP to reach level 99, and that slower skills like RuneCraft typically maxed out around 50,000 XP per hour. This was kind of a massive deal. News of this glitch spread quickly. Every World 60 Pangs chat channel would soon fill up, and before long, there were hundreds of players all huddled around a penguin just east of Ardone. This penguin was the closest to Larry, making it the fastest one to get back to after redeeming points. As the chaos continued, the crowd grew larger and larger. By this point, it wasn't just a crowd of players abusing the glitch. It was also filled with bystanders who gathered to watch it unfold or to report those taking advantage of it. A few player moderators tried to warn others not to exploit the bug, but as you might expect, their messages did very little to stop anyone. You might also notice there are almost as many big birds as there are players. At this point, it was starting to look like the entire Ardone Zoo had escaped. Well, they're a summoning familiar called Spirit Terror Birds. They could carry up to 12 items and had a special ability that restored a player's run energy. Most players likely use them to recover energy while running between the penguin and Larry, but there's some speculation that they had another purpose. With so many terror birds crowded into one area, it became difficult to right-click and report players. A few hours passed before Jagex became aware of the glitch. By that point, it was already the middle of the night in the UK, and everyone at the office had gone home. But around 3 AM on January 29th, Modash made a post on the forums announcing that penguins had been temporarily removed from RuneScape. Much like the Falador massacre years earlier, he was called in during the night to implement an emergency fix. That afternoon, once everyone was back in the office, the glitch itself was actually finally fixed, and penguins returned to RuneScape. But that was far from the end of this story. Jagex now had to investigate and decide what to do with the players who had taken advantage of it. By this point, the community had already begun compiling lists of the worst offenders. One player reportedly gained over 300,000 RuneCraft experience. Another managed nearly 2 million Slayer XP, without anywhere near the combat experience that would have been required to earn it legitimately. And the worst offender of all gained almost 3 million Magic XP. Throughout the afternoon, the official forums raged with complaints, from players frustrated that no one had been banned yet. Players suggested that they not only ban players who abused the glitch, but roll back their accounts to before the glitch happened, so the XP they gained would also be removed. Multiple Jagex staff members assured them that they were working on a solution, but the day came and went and no bans would be issued. Then, on the evening of January 30th, Jagex finally took action. But they went too far. Jagex didn't just ban players who abused the glitch. It seemed like anyone who interacted with the penguin during the time the glitch was active was banned as well. Countless players insisted they'd hunted penguins the proper way, yet still found themselves punished. Let's take a look at Mod John H's forum post announcing the bans for clarification. He began by emphasizing that this wasn't an automated mass ban. Every offense had been applied manually. He went on to say that no one was banned just for being in the area at the time of the glitch, and that everyone who was banned will have a message in their inbox explaining what happened. Now, here's where things get odd. John continues the post by saying that the team will manually review every ban that they had issued that day, and then that all offenses should be considered temporary until a review has taken place. Some bans would be made permanent, while others would be allowed back into the game with no further action. It seems as though Jagex went with the strategy of ban first, ask questions later. As you might expect, this sparked yet another uproar, both on the official forums and across various fan sites. Innocent players were rightfully furious. Many players wondered, what is going on inside of Jagex? Why would they do this? Well, I spoke with Modash to get some clarification. According to him, the decision came from the head of the support team at the time. He had instructed his staff to ban anyone who had, quote, tried to abuse the penguin bug, using a threshold as low as clicking on the same penguin more than once. Meaning, if you accidentally double-clicked a penguin, or clicked on a penguin you had already clicked on earlier in the night, you were getting banned. With rules that strict, it's not hard to imagine how innocent players were caught in the crossfire. A single misclick, lag spike, or moment of curiosity could have been enough to trigger a ban. He also told his staff to issue the bans immediately and wait until after the weekend to review them once more staff were available to help. But when RuneScape's co-founder Paul Gower learned what was happening, he and Mod Ash stepped in. They walked into the support office where Paul overruled the decision. He ordered that the bans be reviewed right away and set a more reasonable threshold for what counted as abuse. Thankfully, Jagex quickly began reviewing the bans, and many players were unbanned within just a few hours. The turnaround was so fast that some people who had been at work or school never even realized they'd been banned until checking their inbox later that night and seeing multiple messages. But not everyone was so lucky. Some accounts, innocent or not, remained banned. But a few days later, all of the innocent players would finally find themselves unbanned, and Paul Gower would post a message on the forums to explain what had happened. According to him, every account involved in the glitch had now been reviewed and sorted into 3 distinct categories. In the first group were the worst offenders, 159 players who were permanently banned. These weren't accidents. Each of them had spotted a penguin at least 250 times, some even several thousand. Since you can only have 50 penguin points at once, that meant they'd repeatedly clicked the same penguin, cashed in their points with Larry, and done it all over again dozens of times. For many of them, this had resulted in millions of experience in some of the game's hardest skills. The second group consisted of players who had knowingly taken advantage of the bug, but on a smaller scale. Their gains weren't nearly as extreme, so they received temporary bans instead of permanent ones. Finally, the third category included accounts that Jagex felt had been punished too harshly. These players had only spotted slightly more penguins than normal, and Jagex admitted that the threshold for punishment had probably been set too low. As I mentioned earlier, most of these players were unbanned within a few hours, but what I've yet to mention is they were also given a month of free membership as an apology. Paul also addressed one of the most common suggestions from the community, rolling back the experience gained from the glitch. Unfortunately, he explained that a rollback wasn't technically possible at the time. He closed by reminding players that exploiting bugs, no matter how tempting, is still a violation of RuneScape's rules, and thanked those who resisted the urge to take advantage of it. With that, the glitch finally came to an end. But its legacy still lives on in RuneScape 3. In 2016, the Gower Quest was added to the game, a celebration of RuneScape's 15-year history and the 3 brothers who created it. During the quest, you meet a penguin named Spenishev, which I've probably butchered the pronunciation of, but every time you talk to him, your character immediately forgets who he is. He explains that he's the penguin everyone was spying on during the 2009 glitch, and was exiled to an area known only as Behind the Scenes. Check out the video on the right about Lynx Titan. He's the rank 1 player on old school RuneScape's high scores, and has been for over a decade, but nobody has seen him in years.